Today, we talk about something different.
Let's go! Dark Simeon, welcome to the set.
Thank you, Scott.
Now, I know last time we met, you would not play Smash Bros. You played PlayStation All-Stars.
I did.
But we've reconciled a little bit, so I'm happy to have you on this show. Normally, your daily Nintendo fandom. Dark Simeon is going to help us explore some other corners of gaming a little bit. We need to talk about SEGA.
Mm-hmm. But first, I just want to say, some people think that Dark Simeon is just like all of the evilness of Simeon taken out and put it in bodily form. I just wanted to say that.
Okay. That's one of those sentences that is usually followed by a but maybe not. Thank you for that enlightenment, or should I say endarkenment. So Dark Simeon.
Yes.
I have played some SEGA.
Yes, you have. In fact, didn't you start with SEGA?
I did.
Just saying, okay, you didn't start with Nintendo.
My brothers brought me up on SEGA so we could talk about Altered Beast, Sonic the Hedgehog, Streets of Rage, Street Fighter. But you grew up on SEGA, and like there was a point where Simeon chose to go Nintendo, and then like the alternate universe split off and stuff. And fortunately, you made it back into this dimension. So I wanted to ask you a lot about the Sega consoles and stuff.
Yeah,
absolutely. All I know is a little bit of Genesis.
Yeah. Now, for people who like really love Sega, that's where we start. Actually, is with the Genesis, because there were 3 consoles before the Genesis.
Yeah, I didn't even know that until recently.
Well, that's because we don't want you to know about it.
Okay.
They were bad. We had the SG-1000 and the SG-1002, which is... That's worse than the Wii U for a name, okay? Can I just admit that?
Yes.
Wii U
it's worse,
not as bad.
It's worse than like new Super Mario Bros. Or new 3DS or even new 2DS, because it's not 1002, it's 1000 Roman numerals.
Yes. Roman numeral 2.
No wonder.
And then we have... Those were just pieces of junk, basically, that played games that were pieces of junk.
Right.
Very small library. Basically, if you wanted to play a good game, you would play it on your Atari or Atari 5200. ColecoVision and Television. Anything was better than these.
Yeah.
Then you have Master System,
which is actually the NES's competitor in 8-bit.
Yes, but once again, we want you to forget about that. I have personally never played a Master System.
Wow.
And I realized why when I looked up, I Googled the search term, are there any good games for the Master System? I came up with a top 10 list. I've played one of the games on, you know how Sonic had collections come out later. I played one of the Sonic games that was for the Master System. And it was abysmal.
Okay.
And that was on that list, so I can only assume.
The controller looks interesting.
It's basically an NES controller with a joystick.
With a cancer pimple.
Yes. I can't say anything against that. Like I said, we want you to forget about the Master System. I do want to point attention to the controller port, though, because you'll notice that controller is going to plug into a Sega Genesis. Wow. It's also going to plug into your... maybe it'll even work for Atari, but ColecoVision and Television, they all had interchangeable controllers. So if you had a Sega Genesis controller and you had those old systems, use your Sega Genesis controller.
That's crazy.
Oftentimes those controllers were pieces of junk.
So I just played a Sega Master System game remake on Switch for review.
Yes.
And that got me thinking, first of all, what's a Sega Master System? So I look back on this history and stuff. And also, I was a little confused about Saturn and Dreamcast. I kind of get those confused, but you were a big-time Dreamcast player, right?
Yeah, basically what happened was when, in the mid-90s, when everybody was playing either Super Nintendo, and then the N64 came out, people were playing that, people were playing PlayStation. I got the Saturn. Mm-hmm. I had the Saturn, and so
that was a disc system.
Yes, and then we continued to not get the N64 or the PlayStation. Yeah, and then we got the Dreamcast as well.
I mean, it's really fascinating to look at the list of Sega video game consoles because there are some Frankensteins. There are things that smash into cartridges, and there are disc things. But the Saturn was the first dedicated disc Sega console.
Indeed. We had the Sega CD and the Sega 32X, small libraries, didn't work that well.
Those were
few good games, though.
Genesis expansions.
Sega CD is a fantastic game. Probably...
Sonic CD.
Did I say Sega CD was on the Sega CD? Sonic CD was on the Sega CD. Sonic CD and Sonic Adventure are tied for me for the best Sonic game.
That's awesome.
So, Sega Saturn, beautiful thing. 6 face buttons, 2 shoulder buttons, the start button, and of course the D-pad or whatever it was. Mm-hmm. And the first party controllers were great. I didn't have this particular model of first party controller.
Oh, okay.
This one looks more like...
This was the first generation one.
Yeah, that's the first generation one. We had a later generation one.
Sega iterated
looked a little bit more sleek. Indeed. The Dreamcast controller and the Dreamcast... first of all, something to say about the Sega Saturn is one of its failures was that it wasn't marketed well.
Right.
It was basically... people knew it was going to come out, and then they came out and said, hey, everybody, you guys want to play Sega Saturn? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, guess what? It's out today. And they're like, wait, you mean we don't get a future? No, it's out today. Go buy it in stores.
People hadn't saved up.
They hadn't saved up, and so that was one of the reasons for its flop. Fantastic gaming system, especially if you're going to play fighting games. Mm-hmm. Virtua Fighter, Fighting Vipers, Fighters Mega Mix, one of my all-time favorite games.
Yep.
Only to be found on the Sega Saturn. Of course, you had some real crummy games like Battle Arena Tishenden, which was Remix, which was a big bowl of doo-doo. And then, but we also had Last Bronx and stuff like that, which was good. Mm-hmm. So, good games, bad games. You just had to know the right games to pick.
Okay, we need to talk about the Dreamcast because this was a big shift for Sega. They continued with CD-based games, but a lot of innovation in the controller. We introduced the analog stick. Yes. We got colored buttons, kind of like SNES.
The trigger buttons were pretty good.
And Sega really rebranded. This was their first white or gray console when they all used to be black.
Indeed. They did come out with some black Sega Dreamcasts.
Okay.
I do know that some of them... did not just have the Dreamcast logo, but it was in a bundle with sports games, and so it had Sega Sports symbol or something on it. I saw it once in a pawn shop. Oh. The controller is great. It's huge, but it's super light as long as you don't have, as we see in this picture, the VMU in it or the memory card. Memory card went in the controller. Let me point out that Sega made a mistake, and then Nintendo made the same mistake after Sega made this mistake. And you know what it is. Yep. The cord coming out the bottom of the controller. They even knew that they made the mistake because they had a hook in the back of the controller to hold it. It's like, why even have that at all?
Yeah, you try to get me to play some Dreamcast games, and it's weird holding it. The rails are kind of thin.
Yes.
And then the cord would kind of slip out and stuff. Yep. 2 memory card slots.
Mm-hmm.
VMU was a big deal. It was a really cool invention from Sega, and it got pretty much all positive feedback.
Indeed. It took watch batteries, which was my big downside to it. But that's only if you wanted to play the games. It didn't require batteries to save memory, but it was basically a little liquid crystal game that you play, like a calculator game, basically in your hand. So it was 2 systems in one. I raised Chow for Sonic Adventure 2 on it.
It's kind of cool.
And it was cool.
It went right along with the Tamagotchi era.
It was the same principle as the Tamagotchis.
Not
throwback to the 90s.
Not quite a Game Boy competitor, but...
Oh, no.
This was really forward-thinking, and you can see some Dreamcast legacy in Wii U and even Switch, you know?
Yes, and it was the first like fully online console. I'm sure that there were other, lesser known consoles that did similar things. I think the Gamecom actually did it first, but this fully online, you can even use Windows. You could use it as a browser. I never did. You could play games online, Phantasy Star Online. I never did.
Yeah. This was the console that killed the manufacturing side of Sega. Hardware. They
basically did nothing after this. I mean, we see stuff like the Pico, but it's the Pico.
I did have the Game Gear, which took 6 AA batteries. That was interesting.
Beautiful, beautiful mess.
And that even had an iteration, like an add-on where you could plug in Genesis carts.
That was the Sega Nomad.
Oh.
It was a different thing that looked pretty much the same. The Sega Nomad was basically a portable Sega Genesis, which Nintendo never did. Mm-hmm. I just want to point that out.
So it just got outsold by the PlayStation 2. The Dreamcast did, and there's no DVD player in it. That would have helped.
Yeah, it could play CDs, but so could the Sega Saturn.
Yeah.
It was ahead of its time in some ways and behind the times in other ways. The library is fantastic. Once again, if you are a fighting game fan, you need the Sega Dreamcast because all the best fighting games are there, whether you're a hardcore fighting game fan, 2D fighting game fan, 3D fighting game fan, party fighting game. Yes. You have Marvel vs. Capcom, Marvel vs. Capcom 2, Capcom vs. SNK. You have Power Stone, Power Stone 2, which is like the best party game ever because it's so easy to jump into and so fun. And then you have Soul Calibur, of course, making it on the Dreamcast. So whatever it is that you love,
it was like
for fighting games,
esports destination.
Yeah, wow. Basically, if esports were a big thing, the Dreamcast would have flourished. But
we didn't even have the E back then.
No, we didn't add E. We were still, adding Z to the ends of things.
Oh yeah, Mad Cats.
Yeah.
So, do you miss Sega consoles, or do you think it's fine they get to focus on games?
Well, I don't so much miss the Sega consoles, but I think they were making better games when they were making consoles.
Wow.
If you look at Sonic games since the Dreamcast died, like a lot of people on Sonic Adventure 2, they could go either way. A lot of people didn't like it. A lot of people really liked it. After that, we had Sonic Heroes.
They had higher stakes. They had to make system sellers,
Yeah. And which Sonic Adventure and Sonic Adventure 2 were, but just not enough. And so, do I miss that they're not making consoles anymore? A little bit. Do I miss that they're not making games like they used to when they made consoles? That is what I miss.
Good answer. Remember, everyone, Sega does what Nintendo don't.
They don't.
Like go out of business and make bad consoles and stuff. Dark Simeon, thank you for coming on the show. Maybe this has something to do with your deep depression. We will have to follow up on that, right?
I guess so.
Thanks for watching. Thanks for being part of the crew. Are you able to do Simeon's job at this point?
Okay. I think I'm supposed to tell you guys to share this video with your friends about the history of Sega. A lot of people in the dark about it. I'm not the biggest Sega history buff. There are bigger ones out there. But share this to those of you. To those of you, if you're watching this video, then you've already known it. Maybe. To your friends who don't know about Sega's legacy and what a great powerhouse they were.
Or maybe you have some friends you used to play Sega with. Be a cool trip down memory lane.
Oh yeah.
See you guys next time.
Signing out.